Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're going to talk about what happens when one of the world's greatest athletes gets told to know her place. And her response? Oh, it wasn't just a comeback, it was a full blown revolution. Okay, this line right here, it just perfectly captures the whole story of Allyson Felix. And let me tell you, this is a story that goes way beyond the running track. It's really about power, about value, and what happens when someone just flat out refuses to be made small. All right, so to really get the impact of what went down, we got to go back a bit. Let's just take a second to remember who Allyson Felix was at the absolute peak of her powers. I mean, she wasn't just a runner, right? She was a global icon. We're talking a chest full of Olympic medals, worldwide fame. She was backed by the biggest names in sports apparel. They celebrated every single win. By all accounts, she was completely on top of the world. But then, she made this huge, life-changing announcement, and it had absolutely nothing to do with the track. And, well, in the eyes of her sponsors, that changed everything. Yep, she was going to be a mother. And the very same company that had built entire campaigns around her strength, the ones who celebrated all those victories, they came back to the negotiating table, not with congratulations, but with a brand new contract offer. And the offer? A 70% pay cut. Just let that sink in. 70%. That's what they decided she was worth as an expectant mother. It was just this staggering devaluation of one of their most celebrated athletes. So you can see the brutal message they were sending right here. As an Olympic champion, she was worth everything. But as a new mother, suddenly her value just plummeted. The very system that praised her for her physical strength was now penalizing her for one of the most natural parts of being human. Look, the expectation was crystal clear. Take the deal, do it quietly, be grateful for what you're getting, and just stay in your lane. But her response? It was a defining moment. She just said no. She chose to bet on herself, even when it meant walking away from pretty much everything she had ever known. But what happened next? Wow. It turned this whole contract dispute into something so much bigger. This wasn't just about a career anymore. It became a fight for her life and for her daughters. So at 32 weeks pregnant, Allyson develops this severe preeclampsia, a condition that put both her and her baby in mortal danger. She was rushed into an emergency C-section, and her daughter Cameron was born premature. She ended up spending the first month of her life in the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit. You can just imagine, right? In those terrifying, quiet moments, just sitting there, watching her tiny daughter fight for her life, everything came into focus. It was like a mirror. She saw with this painful clarity the absolute injustice of a system that would celebrate her physical wins, but then completely abandon her when she was at her most vulnerable. And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures the resolution that was born from that crisis. It was a promise she made to herself and to her daughter. You see, this wasn't about money or sponsorships anymore. This was about reclaiming her own definition of worth on her own terms. Okay, so this brings us to her next chapter, and this is where it gets really interesting. Instead of trying to fix a broken system from the inside, she decided to just step outside of it completely and build something entirely new. So what did she do? She founded Saysh, her very own footwear company. Now, what's so cool about this is the mission. It wasn't just about making shoes. It was about creating a brand that explicitly supports and honors women through every stage of their lives, especially motherhood. And this mission, it was deeply, deeply personal. She's talked about how other female athletes would literally train at dawn in secret, hiding their pregnancies because they were terrified of losing their contracts. So she built Saysh so that no other woman would have to feel that kind of fear or have to shrink herself just to be accepted. So get this, when she stepped onto the track at the Tokyo Olympics, she was wearing her own Sensei sneakers. Every single stride was this act of quiet, powerful rebellion. She was literally defining her own place on the world's biggest stage in shoes that she herself had created. How amazing is that? And wouldn't you know it? In those very shoes, running for herself, for her daughter, for her own company, she won her 11th Olympic medal. So let's be really clear about the takeaway here. Her greatest, most history-making achievement didn't happen when she was backed by some massive corporation. No, it came after she walked away.
after she was told she was worth less, and after she decided, you know what, I'm going to build my own track.
And this is where her story really goes beyond sports and becomes a kind of mirror for all of us, right? It holds such a powerful lesson in self-worth and having the courage to completely change direction. You know, her journey teaches us something really profound. Sometimes that door slamming in your face is actually pushing you toward a much bigger, more authentic path. Losing the approval you thought you needed can be the very first step toward finding real freedom. So her story really makes you look inward and ask yourself this pretty powerful question. Where in my own life have I been running someone else's race? Where am I competing on terms set by other people, chasing some prize that someone else defined for me?
And then, here's the follow-up. This is the real creative challenge. To imagine a path that is 100% your own, built on your values. What would it actually look like if you built your own track?
So we'll leave you with this final thought, which is really the core lesson from her entire journey. Real power isn't about who sponsors you. It's about who you decide to become when they don't. It's all about what you claim for yourself in those moments when you choose your own worth, your own truth, and your own voice.